before walking in this morning, as we were just saying a couple words about Naomi, it really stuck out to me that, you know, we have a blessing in the Jewish tradition, especially when someone's birthday comes around, that we say you should live to be 120, or at least, and one of the ways that we frame that is, because it works in Hebrew also, that you should live to be 100 but still feel like you're 20, right? And you know, I did get a message that it was on Naomi's 97th birthday that she wasn't feeling well, right? And I think she had gone in to the hospital for some treatment at that time. But I'll tell you, among us, if anyone had a shot of making it to 100 and still feeling like she was 20, or maybe even making it to 120 and feeling like she was 20, goodness gracious, she was a solid candidate for that. And I keep that in mind as I will share, because as we start off, we listen to the voices that come from our tradition, really coming from different scriptural passages. And we'll start with a passage from the 90th Psalm. I'm not expecting that you know this by heart, but there's a reference there to age, which in her case just seems like, it's going to mention like 80 years. And if you do the math in your head, that's 80 years old. And for her, that was 17 years ago. Like a real long time ago. This is the 90th Psalm, again, read in her honor today. God, you've been our refuge in every generation. Before the mountains came into being, and again, reading that passage, I think about her and her connection to the mountains. Before you brought forth our earth, the universe, from eternity to eternity, God, you've been there. And then there's us, mere mortals. You turn to us and say, return. For the days of our years, 70, or by reason of strength, 80 years. But 1,000 years to you, God. It's like a blink of an eye. Like just yesterday. What do we learn from this? That we should number our days. In doing so, we may attain a heart of wisdom. Make our days count. May your favor, O God, be upon us. We ask that you establish the work of our hands, that it will long endure. Apropos of mountains, Psalm 15. God, who is it that may live in your house and may dwell in your holy mountain? All right. Parenthetically, the sugar type or otherwise. Those who are truly upright and who do justice, who speak the truth within their hearts, not speaking ill of others, wronging them, bringing shame upon them, but keep their distance from the lawless and seek to honor those who revere you, O God, who give their word and come what may, do not retract, who don't exploit others, who don't take bribes. Those who live in this way shall never be shaken. Or we might turn at a time like this to the comforting words of the 23rd Psalm. You may know one or another of the translations in English. If you know it, I welcome you to say it together with me. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. God makes me lie down in green pastures, leads me beside the still waters, restores my soul. You guide me in straight paths for your name's sake. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for you are with me. Your rod and your staff, they comfort me. You prepare a table before me in the presence of my enemies. You have anointed my head with oil. My cup runneth over. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I shall dwell in the house of the Lord forever. And so you may be familiar with this, and if not, it's okay. But the classic writings of our people, the Jewish people, the ones that have been studied for hundreds of years, if not longer, Our classic texts always end with the same two Hebrew words, tam v'nishlam. Translated to English, those words simply mean, this book is fully complete. We know that our lives are like books. If we're blessed as Naomi was, our books are large volumes filled with page after page of meaningful entries. As tender as this moment is, and it really is, let's remember that Naomi was blessed to author a story 97 plus years long. And author she did. She was the incredible narrator of her story, really up to the very end. And yet, as much as we would wish it to be otherwise, every story and every book has an end point. The same we know is true with our lives. At some point, our eyes close for the last time. We reach that final page, and then those final words appear. Hebrew again. Tam v'nishlam. This book is fully complete. The stories that we've written through our physical presence, we know, reach their completion. It's just a fact of life. But why begin a story from the end? Naomi's story deserves to be told from the beginning. She was the oldest of Seth and Bertha Maris's two children. Born and raised in New York City, Brooklyn more precisely, she would leave the north, wisely coming south to North Carolina in order to get her college degree from what is now UNC Greensboro. She completed that degree. But as is well known, she also wound up with much more than a degree. She fell in love with a special guy from here, with Arnold Marks, getting married and spending the next 75 years. Think of that, 3/4 of a century as a proud Jewish North Carolinian. The story of how Naomi and Arthur met, one of the key chapters in her book, is likely one that's been told over and over again, but it bears repeating now as we're praising the life that she lived. Arnold was at UNC at the time. He was trying to get a date for his cousin Ellis with another girl in Naomi's dorm. Eventually, I hope I got this right, Arnold asked Naomi if she would go out with Ellis, and she said no. Naomi, to her credit, always knew what she wanted, and she was never shy about staying away from what she didn't want. The following week, Arnold was in a car with his mother, who noticed a very beautiful co-ed nearby and asked her son, "Who is that girl?" And Arnold answered that her name was Naomi. Just so happened he was going out with her the next Saturday night, which must have sounded pretty amazing to his mom. The only problem with his answer was that he hadn't yet asked Naomi for a date. Well, it was the first thing that he did when he got out of the car. He got on the phone, he called Naomi, asked her out, and unlike with cousin Ellis, this time she said yes. Again, she knew what she wanted. That date led to a relationship that would take them through 63 years of marriage, from 1950 until Arnold's passing in the summer of 2013. Both Arnold and Naomi were young, quite young when they married. Each promised their parents that they would finish school, and true to form, they kept their word. As the years went on, they would build a family, becoming the proud parents of Diane, then Steve, then Judy. But let me pause here. In the coming moments, we will hear brief tributes to Naomi from 3 members of the family. Her son Steve will speak first. Larry will speak next, sharing a few thoughts about his mother-in-law. Then we'll hear from Andrew, if memory's not, if I'm not mistaken, who will speak about his Aunt Naomi. I will then return to say a few more words in her honor. So Steve, if you'd come forward at this time. Thank you.
We'll have to say that the rabbi took part of my speech, so you're going to hear some of it a second time. But on behalf of the family, I want to thank all of our friends and family for joining with us today. We especially appreciate those that have traveled far to be here with us. Our mother touched a lot of lives, as she has shown by the tremendous amount of emails, texts, and phone calls we've received over the past few days. Today is a day of celebration for our mother. I did not truly understand this expression until Mom and I got to talk about it over the last couple of weeks. She had a chance to reflect on some of what she has done and seen in her life, and by her own words, acknowledged she has had a great life. She enjoyed her 97 years on earth, and for those of you who really knew her, you know she did it her way. Mom was born in Brooklyn, New York, to Seth and Bertha Maris. She enjoyed her pre-college life living and going to school in Brooklyn and then later in Manhattan. They would summer in the New York mountains or by the New Jersey shore. She enjoyed her northern roots, but was happy to travel south to attend women's college here in Greensboro, which we all know today as UNCG. She used to marvel at how that little school had grown up. She met my father while they were both in college. Dad, having returned from the Navy and the war, was finishing up his degree at UNC. They dated for a while and then married in New York on June 20th, 1950. Mom and Dad were able to enjoy a happy and busy 63 years of marriage before passing in 2013. The three children, Diane, Judy, and myself. The family has grown since then to be 6 children and spouses, 7 grandchildren, and 7 great-grandchildren. With our father's passing in 2013, our mother expanded on their already busy social calendar to include more activities, including book clubs, mahjong, knitting, and dinner groups on Wednesday, Thursday, and Saturday nights. Mom truly loved Sugar Mountain and her friends up there and tried to be an active participant when she was in the mountains for the summer. She participated in many of the same activities up there. She was one of the original founders for the Temple of the High Country. I think the lesson she left her children and others is do not surrender to the couch. Keep moving, and in doing so, you have a reason to have happy days. It has been said that it took a village to keep up with our mother. I want to thank all the people who helped, both in Sugar Mountain and here in Greensboro. A special thanks to our cousins, Michael and Lauren, Andrew and Jen. And an additional thank you to her caregivers, Shay, Ashley, and Jamie. Their help and patience over the last few years kept her going. Mom, we love you, we will miss you, but we will not forget you.
Good morning. We're all here today to celebrate the life of Naomi Marks. It's not often that a man gets up in front of a crowd to talk about his mother-in-law, unless he is performing at some comedy club with jokes like, "My mother-in-law arrived today. I knew it was her when she knocked on the door and the mice threw themselves on the traps." Or, "My mother-in-law came to dinner and asked me, 'Why does your dog keep staring at me?' I said, 'Because you're using his plate.'" But I'm here today to say a few kind and truthful words about Naomi, who I have thought of as a second mother. Having lost mine over 18 years ago, we never had a single crossword or argument in the more than 50 years that we had been in each other's lives. I can remember how she graciously welcomed me into the family when I met and married her daughter, Diane, who, as most of you know, unfortunately passed away 6.5 years ago. Even after that, we remained close. She often told me that she considered me her son. With rare exception, every Sunday morning between 11 a.m. and 12 p.m., I would call Mom, and we would catch up on each other's lives. She would tell me about all of the activities she'd done the past week, and many of them which Stephen had already mentioned, all her going out to dinner, book clubs, knitting clubs, and activities in the synagogue, and sprinkled in doctor's appointments, of course. She did thrive on staying busy, and she prided herself on that. Perhaps the most important activity that she did each week was that beauty parlor appointment. She had to go to make sure that she looked good. She took pride in her appearance. She adored her grandchildren, her great-grandchildren, often speaking or FaceTiming with them, and always asking me about each of them when we spoke. Mom was not perfect. She had her faults, as we all do. She could be headstrong and not always the easiest person to communicate with, as I'm sure both Stephen and Judy will testify to. She could be feisty, as many of her home care helpers will tell you, although they might want to use more colorful adjectives to describe her behavior towards some of them. If she didn't like something they were doing or the way they did it, she would let them know in no uncertain terms and try to ban them from returning to her house. The agency owner was frantic because she ran out of caregivers to send. Mom's favorite caregivers were Shay and Ashley, who understood her wants and needs the best, had the patience of saints, and who took such good care of her to the very end. And for that, I and the family thank you both. Mom could be stubborn, determined to do things her way and not always in her best interest, but she was a fighter, miraculously recovering from multiple illnesses and hospitalizations, and able to return to her regular activities. She acknowledged that she was fortunate enough to have led a good life, but at 97 years, she succumbed to that final battle. I will miss my weekly calls with Mom, but I take comfort in knowing that she had a good, long life and is now at peace and reunited with her beloved Arnold and Diane. Thank you.
So good morning, everyone. My name is Andrew Maris. I'm one of Naomi's nephews. My brother Michael and I, along with our wives, Lauren and Jennifer, have traveled from north of the Mason-Dixon line to be here today to remember our favorite Aunt Naomi. At this point, she would want me to say, "Hey, y'all." Those of you familiar enough with the family tree may point out that she was our only aunt, not just our favorite aunt. And I would counter it was better that way, because no one else could have held a candle to our Naomi. Our father David, who passed away a few years ago at the age of 91, Naomi would refer to as her baby brother. And while I am not by any means the best source to relate family history, I do know that Nay came down to Carolina for college and never returned to Brooklyn. It was probably safer down here for her, as I remember hearing that she stood on line so long to see Frank Sinatra in Manhattan that she fainted. So off to Greensboro she went, meeting Arnold and building a home and a wonderful life. Our father followed suit, coming down to attend North Carolina State before returning to New York. where their father Seth began to charge him rent when he moved back home. Naomi and David's mother, Bertha, was similarly firm, and Judy, Steve, Mike, and I could share any number of stories about her. To this day, what is remarkable to me is that out of this household came Aunt Nay, the sweetest, most wonderful person you could ever know. A long, long time ago, I served as ring bearer for Larry and Diane in a white silk brocade jacket and a comically oversized bow tie. Steve zipped me around in his convertible. In all likelihood, he had me around 6 years old, sitting in the front seat without a seatbelt, driving from the temple to the reception. And after a very, very long day of rehearsals, the ceremony, and pictures, I'd had about enough. And with tears in my eyes and a plate in my hand, I approached this massive buffet. Overwhelmed by the size and scope, I stood there bewildered until someone came up behind me, and I'll never know who. But they pointed at a dish of something and said, "Those are safe. Your aunt made those." And that was Naomi. She was always safe. Her home was always warm and welcoming. She always greeted me with a smile and a gentle how do that belied her original northern roots. When we were young, visiting Nay and Arnold at 108 Faulkner Drive was always meant two things to me and Mike. First, you would always be fed well. And second, at some point, the dog would get out. And you never saw a basset hound move that quick. Naomi would let out a holler, and Mike or I would run down the block in pursuit of Sandy. You never knew by looking at him, but that dog could move. I remember years later, gathering in her kitchen for breakfast, I witnessed one of the greatest tests of wills you have ever seen. On one hand was Naomi, who never let anyone leave her table hungry. On the other was Judy's fiance, Robert, who felt it was rude not to clean his plate and the table. Back and forth they went, Naomi cooking and Robert eating. Nay was in disbelief as to how much Robert could eat, and Robert was just trying to be polite. It was an amazing matchup that I think must have ended in a draw. Nothing would have made Naomi happier than to have Mike or I come down to Carolina for college. When we were younger, she made sure to show us Steve's dorm room over at State, which I recall looked more like a recycling center for Budweiser than a dorm room. When I came down to visit a few times as a teenager, Naomi made sure to drive me around Chapel Hill. On one of those visits, she went so far as to set me up on a blind date in an effort to further sway my interest in the Carolinas. And while none of those efforts panned out, when our son Ryan chose Wake Forest, she was over the moon. And it gave us 4 years of regular visits, including one when Dad had the opportunity to come down and visit his sister. And as sweet and warm and wonderful as Nay could be, she did inherit some of Bertha and Seth's genes. When I was dating my wife, Jen, one summer Jen worked for Burlington up in Clarksville, and she and Naomi had a chance to meet. Soon after that meeting, Nay looked at me, wagged her finger menacingly, and said firmly, "Nephew, don't you let her go." I probably chuckled at her approval until she gave me this look. She meant it. She really meant it. And in the years to follow, she and Jen became very close. They spoke regularly, they shared books, they talked about the kids. They would compare notes on Mom and Dad, particularly after Mom passed and Nay and Dad spoke every day, often first thing in the morning and last thing before bed. Nay went so far as to entrust Jen with her recipe for sugar pie. Sugar, eggs, Cairo corn syrup, a few pecans, and an optional touch of bourbon to taste. I believe there might be 1 or 2 pies at the Shiva if you're lucky enough to get a slice. When my father passed away, the rabbi asked me if I wanted to speak at his funeral. I replied to the rabbi that I didn't think I was up to it. But she counseled me that this was a rare opportunity, that I should take advantage of it. Rabbis can be very convincing. She encouraged me to share some thoughts and memories, much as I have done today. She did not, however, give me the guidance on how to close my remarks easily and gracefully. But here goes. Tanae's kids, grandkids, and great-grandkids, she loved you all deeply. We thank you for sharing her with us. We will all miss her terribly. She fought like hell these past years, and we owe an immense gratitude to those who cared for her. It's unlikely that there will be another Aunt Nay anytime soon, but her memory lives on in all of us. May your homes always be warm and welcoming to friends and family alike. And as she would often say to me at the end of a conversation, you be good now, you hear?
As we know, those are just some of the stories. Some of the stories in that very well-crafted book that was her life. Her story really featured a deep commitment to family, as we've heard. What a blessing that each of you spoke. And it was also punctuated by her dedication to friends and to community. She really loved this community where we are right now. She loved Temple Emmanuel. But above all, she loved being Jewish and dedicated so much to temple life wherever she was. My son attended Appalachian State University. I'm just going to go with this for a second here. So we found ourselves up in Boone on a few occasions, and being a rabbi, we were there like over a Shabbat and stuff like that. We went to the Temple of the High Country. Not all the time, but on a few occasions. And I'll tell you, if you've been there before, it does not take long to spot one or another of the dedicatory plaques with the Marks name on it. And I wasn't even looking. She and Arnold loved that congregation, helping to build it, as we heard, to sustain the community's presence in a part of the state that was really near and dear to their hearts. And we don't have enough time this morning to explore the depth of her connection to Temple Emmanuel here. So let me just share one story, one anecdote. There was a day she was in our bride's room, noticed that the window area lacked style. It's somewhat of a nice room, but it was a little plain for her taste. There were just simple blinds up there, but no fancy drapes or window treatments. And so she made a pronouncement, I'm going to remedy that. Well, you know what happens when she says something like that. She made a beautiful window topper. You can go in and look at it another time. She paid to have it installed. And I must say that what she did really does transform the room. And this is probably one of the last of her many gifts, big and small, to our congregation. And it does stand as a lasting tribute to how she did amazing things. She did them because they mattered, and she did them from her heart. Naomi didn't just have a good heart, she had a great heart. I saw this each moment that I, as one of her rabbis, was blessed to spend time with her. Where did this come out most profoundly? Maybe it was in the mandel bread that she would make for grandkids in the next generation, the way that she would use her phone to call and text friends, almost like she wasn't in her 90s, but was like a teenager. How she would be in touch constantly with kids and friends. Blame her good, youthful looks on the salon, as we heard. But let's be honest, she was more than just young at heart. I remember being stunned when just a few years ago, I learned how old she really was. And I was like, wow. And I know that I'm not alone in that regard. It's hard, though, not to remember one of her greatest expressions of love. That took place towards the end of Arnold's life. Those times were anything but easy. She was with him, by his side so often. She took exceptional care of him. She kept him going for much longer than he might have otherwise lasted had she not been there. Talk about dedication. Talk about goodness from your heart. What a blessed example for us and for our world. An unforgettable chapter that she never asked for, but that she took on with her signature strength, goodness, and grace. What an incredible lady. Through good times and tough times, she penned a beautiful life. She also made sure, especially over the last years, to keep things, let's call it, exciting. On more than one occasion, she faced serious health setbacks. Again, something that she didn't ask for. She knew her share of life's challenges, living through the passing of Arnold, and then several years later, and our hearts go out to you, Larry, and to the family, facing the heartbreaking reality of Diane's passing, of her death. Time and again, physically and emotionally, she bounced back. I wouldn't be surprised if somebody called her the comeback kid, because staging a comeback is what she did each and every time that she faced adversity. Nothing was a match for her resolve and for that signature inner strength. I will admit this, it came as a surprise when I heard that her health had taken a turn back on her birthday. And even more so when I learned that it might be a matter of days or even hours when we spoke, Steve. So many times before, she'd been the comeback kid. And yet, despite being in pretty tough shape, she was making her way back to health again. I was convinced she had more time, really was. And I know I'm not alone in saying that. This time there was a partial comeback, just wasn't a full comeback. And I understand that she was okay with that. Passing away at peace, with the knowledge that she was loved by so many, cared for so well by a team of caregivers. I mean, you know, when you mention caregivers over and over and over again during a funeral, Shay, Ashley, and Jamie, you made a difference. And of course, looked after by her children and family who were there for her, just as she had been there for Arnold years ago. Tam V'nishlam, those Hebrew words at the end of our most cherished books. Naomi Marks' physical presence, we have to acknowledge, has reached its mortal end. But let's not forget that life stories take place in realms that go far beyond the physical. Her goodness will live on. So many fond reminiscences about her, as well as what she taught all of us about living a meaningful life. She is going to live on in our hearts forever. And even as there will be tears in our eyes and heaviness in our hearts, it happens even when someone has lived a full, long, complete life. Knowing the way that she approached her own mortality should bring us comfort. And so should the rabbinic teaching, which reminds us that as long as we continue to love the ones that we've lost, we never truly lose the ones we love. We know that she lived a good life. Our blessings go out to her many friends, to so many in the family. Please excuse me for not mentioning every one of her loving in-laws, nephews, nieces, cousins, and so many more. But I will turn to you, Larry, to Steve together with Segrid, to Judy together with Robert, to her 7 grandchildren, Susan, Arlene together with Jeff, Mark together with Damien, Rachel together with Andrew, Seth, Mitchell together with Megan, David together with Paige, and to her 7 great-grandchildren, Sophie and Drew, Olivia and Isabel, and Mackenzie, Evan, and Bennett. She treasured all of you. She treasured all of us. So many more. We all will miss her. We're going to miss those calls, those interactions, and those great moments, but we will never, ever forget her. Naomi, you did it. You left a great impression on our world. 97 plus years. Wow. Tam V'nishlam, your book is now fully complete. And each of us, we're going to continue to recount your many virtues. We will never stop telling your story. and we'll never stop smiling. Thank you for that. May your memory always persist, living on as a blessing and as an inspiration, as together we all say, Amen. Friends, if you're able to do so, I'm going to ask that we stand now for the traditional El Maleh Rachamim prayer, which I will chant. Afterwards, and not now, after the English translation, I will ask for the pallbearers to come forward. But I will say this, that interment will take place at the Greensboro Hebrew Cemetery. We will start that at 1:15 noon. Just checking my watch right now for that. Note, as I think many know this already, that we don't go in a processional with our cars. If you're going there, just go directly to the cemetery. It's too challenging, too dangerous to put on headlights and the blinkers. It's not like in the olden days. Please allow the family to get to the transport, to the vehicle outside. As hard as it is, please don't visit with the family in our foyer area or in the entry area in front of the sanctuary doors. We'll do our best to make our way to the Greensboro Hebrew Cemetery, which is located on the corner of Van Story and High Point Road. Make sure that you put your GPS to Greensboro Hebrew Cemetery. There will be a gathering for Shiva prayers at Naomi's home, 709 Burton Place North, later this afternoon at 5:45 p.m. All are welcome. That would be a good time for visiting. 5:45 at Naomi's home. El Maleh Rachamim Shochein Bameromim Hamtzei Menucha Nechona Tachat Kanfei HaShechina Im Kedoshim Utehorim Kezohar Araki Amazirim Et Nishmat Naomi bat Seth veBertha Shalcha Lolama Bal Harachamim Yastireha Beseter Kenafav Leolamim Veyitzror Betzorah Chaim Et Nishmata Adonai Hu Nachalata V'tanuach B'Shalom Al Mishkava V'nomar Amen. O compassionate God, eternal Spirit of the universe, we ask now that you grant perfect rest in your sheltering presence to Naomi Marks, who has entered eternity. You are the God of mercy. Let her find refuge in the shadow of your wings. Let her soul be bound up in the bond of everlasting life. God, you are her earned inheritance. May she forever rest in peace. As together we all say, Amen. At this time, I'd like to ask for the pallbearers to please come forward.